We're live. All right, so let's break it down now. Hey everyone, welcome to SPSM Chat, Suicide Prevention Social Media. You never know what you're going to get with those intros, with those countdowns. So that's why you tune in live. So sometimes, like, I just decide I'm going to cut that out for the replay. So. But thank you everyone
Sorry.
for that's totally fine. We'll get into the swing of things real soon. But if you're watching this live, first of all, hello. I appreciate you. My name is Rudy Caseres. So it says on the graphic right here. And our topic today, it's a fun one. I think we should do this every year. College spring breakdown. Because is it really spring break unless you've had at least one breakdown in the midst of all of it? I'd like to think so. So thank you for joining us. SPSM Chat, suicide prevention, social media, whether it's on twitter.com/SPSM Chat. We are, of course, at SPSM Chat. Hopefully, you're using that hashtag SPSM, not just during the live stream, but throughout the week to get the conversation flowing and to make my job easier. Twitch.tv/SPSM Chat. I see Lustar has joined us in the chat. We got other people in the Twitch chat as well. Please, please, please help us build that channel. If you have a Twitch channel, our Twitch account, even if you don't stream, please just watch us on that platform and help build our numbers there. Even if you usually watch on Twitter or other platforms like youtube.com/SPSM Chat, which is usually the best way to see past episodes. Thank you for following on Twitch, TG Shizap. I appreciate that. And facebook.com/SPSM Chat. Without further ado, let's get into the swing of things and get to our lovely panelists. Just two again this week, but they are both awesome in their own rights. So without further ado, tell the whole world, the whole SPSM Chat universe, galaxy, solar system, who is Anja Burčak?
Hi, I'm Anja. I am an incoming graduate student this upcoming fall for a school psychology program, and I'm currently involved in blogging, victim advocacy, and suicide prevention research.
Thank you. And this is your second time, correct, on SPSM Chat?
Yes, I believe so.
Awesome, awesome. And you were talking earlier that you were having offline that you were having some tech issues. So I'm glad that we were able to iron those things out. You're coming from your phone, looking smooth on my end. So just I appreciate you keep soldiering on. Like, you're going to make this. I knew you were so excited to be on SPSM Chat again. So I'm glad that we're able to make this work. And you're going to bring the fire, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Get ready.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, so let's get on to our next panelist. One second. And let's, there we go. One, how's it going? We are back, the Lord's willing. It might take a minute or so to repopulate on all the platforms. So I have never had that happen before where like an SPSM chat just completely just crashed. So usually like it like freezes for like a second if it does that and comes right back on. But here we are. We're just gonna pretend that never happened somehow. Like I might have to like combine the two, whatever. Let's just get back into the swing of things. We're live, and that's all that matters. Again, we're talking about college mental health and suicide, and I'm Rudy Caseres, your host. And I don't know how much people saw on their end, so I'll just let Anja introduce herself again, and then I'll let Ryan introduce themselves again as well. So, Anja.
Hi, I'm Anja. I'm an incoming school psychology graduate student this upcoming fall, and I'm a mental health blogger. I'm also involved in victim advocacy, content creation, and suicide prevention research.
Cool. And Ryan?
Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm finishing up my master's in experimental psychology right now at Towson University, and I'll be attending UNC Charlotte's public health sciences program in the fall And my research has mainly been integrating multiple perspectives to examine self-harm, trauma, and all things suicide.
Cool. So thank you. Yes, we are back. Yeah, the stream crashed, but we're here. Lord's willing. Lustar says I shouldn't have mentioned tech issues. Like that shows me, right? I'm like glad that's so far behind us. So let's get into the swing of things. I want to hear from all of you out there on Twitter land. Thankfully, we didn't crash Twitter as well. That Twitter actually. I'll check on Twitter one second, but let me just start the conversation. Let's have that get going. Talk about your college experience. I'll start with Anja, and then Ryan. Talk about what your college experience was like, the good, the bad, and the ugly, but mostly the suicidal. So let's go with Anja.
Okay, so the light stuff, right? So my first 2 years were, I would say, like fairly normal. I didn't have any mental health issues really that much. And then the summer after my sophomore year, I had a really sudden, unexpected depressive episode. And that was when I had my first experience with suicidal ideation. And it was not something that I had expected because I don't have a family history of any type of mental health issues. So this was like really, really overwhelming and intense and kind of like day after day, all day. So I know there's a like kind of a like you can have passive or you can have active, you can have different levels, but I was kind of like on the more severe end for a lot of that summer. And eventually I got a bipolar disorder diagnosis. And so I had kind of like suicidal ideation in different ways because during a mixed episode, like with mania and depression, that was a lot different than during just depression by itself. So it's kind of like different experiences based off of my type of mood episode.
How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, actually kind of similar in terms of the first 2 to 3 years were kind of the normal college experience. And around the time that I started my undergraduate thesis, my anxiety started to peak a lot. And then I actually onset with a panic disorder, ended up going to treatment for that and learned about it and had really never experienced that sense of like kind of hopelessness and feeling like I wasn't in control of my bodily sensations at all. That was a really scary time for about a month when I was trying to understand it and overcome it. Fortunately, have gotten it under control now. Haven't had any lived experience with any sort of suicidal ideation or anything like that, but a lot of people in my life that have been close to me have. So that kind of has driven the interest surrounding that for me.
Yeah, and you're currently studying right now. Can you talk a little bit about your current studies?
Oh gosh, which one? I'm doing a lot of different things.
What exactly is experimental psychology, Ryan?
It's very vague. The way I describe it to people who are outside of psychology is that I design essentially either surveys or more experimental procedures to understand how our mind, our thoughts, our emotions are influenced by particular circumstances or situations.
Awesome. And I see Lustar on Twitch says that you are a lucky ducko. So that is Australian, correct, Lustar? Glad you rejoined us. Who also says chronic suicidal ideation is hellish. As you can imagine, that going to college during a pandemic can be hellish in of itself. How has that experience been like, especially for you, Ryan, who's currently studying? Can you talk us through that process of what it was like when things start shutting down and how you've been dealing with that?
Yeah, so at the onset of the pandemic, I had really, really awesome professors. They started checking in a lot more and making sure that we were okay. I actually had a good experience in terms of the workload. So a lot of my friends had their workload increase at the onset of the pandemic when everything went online, which I thought was just ridiculous. And a lot of my professors like cut down the paper length. I had a 60-minute presentation that went down to a 15-minute presentation. So just a lot of understanding and realizing that there's more important things going on, and being able to balance that was really nice. So I feel like I'm in the abnormality for experiences of kind of college during the pandemic, because I was in the later part of my program. So a lot of my like core classes had already been completed. So for the past year, I haven't had an intense workload as far as that goes.
Okay. How about you, Anja? I know that you're going into a grad program this fall. Was there a time where you were thinking like, oh, maybe I should wait? Like the whole world is going like just out of control right now.
I absolutely did think about that because it's so hard to predict how things are going to go. And I want to be in grad school physically. I don't want to be at Zoom University. So, especially with a type of graduate program where a lot of the things are very like hands-on, you need to learn in person, things like conducting assessments. So, I was worried about that, but I think things will be a lot more normal by the time fall comes around because of the vaccines.
The Lord's willing. um, but no, we need more people like you doing important work. Can you talk a little bit more about what you plan on studying in the fall?
Sure. So the the master's program is to be a school psychologist in the public school setting. So that is really preparing people to go into that work environment and work with children and with teachers and kind of do like all sorts of different things like assessments and can do like working with kids one-on-one or like working with groups, looking at academic interventions or behavioral interventions. So it's a whole bunch of different things.
All
I'm
right.
excited to explore the field more in school.
Yes. But please don't leave Twitter, okay?
Of course not.
Awesome. So, just want to give some more shout outs before we continue the conversation. For those who are just joining us right now, we had a little bit of a crash, like about 5 minutes in, which is awesome because like I scheduled all of the tweets with the original link to the broadcast. So if for some reason you're seeing like two streams on Twitter and Facebook and whatever, that is why. I'll try to clean that up and make it more clear. Like it's too much work to do right now to fix that right now. So we're just going to like power through this and then we'll clean things up later on and hopefully try to make it all coherent somewhat. So just good quick shout outs to Lust Star again, one of our VIPs says the experiences, hey, you're not large this time. The experience of people I know who are currently studying were so varied during the pandemic. I'm not sure if you've all noticed the same. Some had really understanding faculty, but others, but not all. We will definitely get to understanding faculty very soon. So let's hold that thought. Thank you. TG Shizap says this is awesome. Twitch should highlight this channel. I agree. Hopefully on a week where we don't have crashes. So that would be my luck, that we would get like on the front page of like Twitch and stuff, and like the whole thing would just go down. So hey, Laz the Laz, one of our co-hosts and VIPs as well on Twitch. Appreciate you. Thank you for supporting people in the Twitch chat. If you can be my best friend forever, Laz, can you retweet the news stream on Twitter? Because right now the pinned tweet is the one that crashed. So that is going to be very confusing to people. I greatly appreciate it. You can do it from your own account, but that's totally fine. And Lustar goes on to say, my clinical psychologist also works as a school psychologist over here, primarily with kids who are neurodiverse. Awesome. Again, we got to have you on the show sometime soon, Lustar. I appreciate that. Okay, so I think we got some people on the Twitch chat as well. So, hey, Henry, in response to one of our questions on Twitter, which is basically just if you being in college, when you were in college, or if you are in college, do you think about suicide from time to time? And Henry says, college absolutely made me think about suicide more often and was the most suicidal I ever was, being in such a new unfamiliar environment without much support contributed to thinking about suicide more often. You are far from the only one. Looks like you're one of the social worker students, so keep on doing great work. We need more people like you. And so if you're on the Twitter, hello, thank you. Glad to join us. Hopefully that you can go to our, I don't know. It's weird. If you're watching this right now, you figure it out. But whatever. Okay, so let's go back to our to this view. Okay, so I want to hear from Anja and then Ryan talk about the issues that can arise that can make someone suicidal while in college.
Sure. So I had kind of anticipated this question, so I wrote down a few, but it can vary so much. Yay. So I think it depends on the campus culture as well, but for a lot of people, there's like a workaholic culture of like pulling all-nighters and skipping meals and just like doing whatever you have to do to get the perfect GPA and GRE scores and perfect CV resume, and it's a lot. It's overwhelming. So there's perfectionism, and if you fall short of those perfect standards, then you feel like a complete failure. So that can lead to anxiety and depression and that kind of downward spiral. There's like constantly comparing yourself to your peers, which you can do 24/7 with social media, because you can just scroll and you can constantly see everyone's like highlight reel, how perfect they look, because that's all they post, their achievements. And then there's the fact that there are campus resources, but often they're overwhelmed. So you might go during exam time, but pretty much a lot of students also want to see a mental health professional during such a stressful time. So often those campus resources are overwhelmed. And then there's also the uncertainty of the future and big transitions, and a lot of people can feel very isolated. So there's just so much going on and so many changes that it can be incredibly overwhelming.
How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, so the interesting thing about college is that it's a time point of increased mental health vulnerability, just in general, because for the first time, people are leaving their parents or their primary caregivers and guardians. So there's a lot of attachment-related issues that could occur, since you have to rely more on peers and potential partners. But if those peers and support systems aren't there, that could lead to the development of suicidal ideation in that respect. And I also like to think about, since a lot of my work has been involved in trauma and sexual violence, if someone has any sort of sexual assault that could happen on campus, that could also onset suicidal ideation. And also, going to Anja's point with the campus resources, I don't know if this is the norm with resources available, but the ones on my campus at least are more suited for like, oh, you have like a difficult test coming up, you had a breakup, not dealing with more forms of psychopathology like BPD, bipolar, and depression, which is really unfortunate. And despite how frequent and prevalent those are in college, I feel like it's just understaffed in that regard.
Speaking of staff, something that I hear about a lot, and this is goes back to my experience, which I didn't talk about, but very quickly. Like I had multiple breakdowns while in college. I actually I never even got to transfer to a 4-year university just because I was struggling so much. Like it went into the army in the middle of that. Like I tried queuing back when I was like 24, 25. That wasn't working out. Had no idea what I was going to do with my life. But thankfully, I was able to find a therapist on campus that we clicked and we worked on a lot of things. And I got involved with my Active Minds chapter on campus. But that still wasn't enough to really get through to like passing all my classes and stuff because my teachers, at least the ones that I had, they weren't very empathetic towards my mental health issues, such as depression, anxiety, bipolar mania, catatonic episodes, and so I just felt very like misunderstood, that no one cared, that the teachers thought I was weak or making things up or lying. So I want to talk about what it's like to. I want to hear your experience, but I also want to hear everyone else's experience there, out on the Twitch chat, on the Twitter chat, and everywhere else. Like, what has been your experience like dealing with faculty and college instructors when you have some kind of mental health crisis? Because I know even if you are not diagnosed with a mental illness or have never been suicidal, like we have all struggled in college. It is hard, okay? So I want to hear from Anja first. Talk about what your experience was like dealing with faculty and whether they were sympathetic or whether you were one of the lucky ones.
Sure. So I think that there's a wide range of responses, unfortunately. So I have had really helpful responses. For example, I was manic during the period of finals week. And so I managed to tell my professors and communicate that. And they said, okay, like go to like counseling and psychological services, like we can postpone your exams, like don't worry about that right now. If you're manic, like your health goes first. So getting that kind of support, and then I think the dean or assistant dean, someone else also helped with that. And then I had to take a leave of absence. So like some of it was really helpful. And then there was also some of the cases where I tried to tell a professor, like, I have bipolar disorder, and I got kind of negative feedback. Like I said, yeah, I want to go to grad school after graduating. And they were saying, oh, well, I know someone who had bipolar disorder and it took them 10 years to even graduate undergrad. Like, I don't recommend going to grad school. That kind of thing, when it's like, you shouldn't limit me based off of my diagnosis. So it's kind of all over the place.
Do you have any experiences to share, Ryan?
Man, I feel like I'm pretty fortunate again here with the experiences. Although when I've seen so many interactions on Twitter where I'm just surprised that faculty can be so just unempathetic towards just life circumstances that show up. So I feel like that's a real issue. And even among psychology faculty members, sometimes that can happen, even though they have this training, this awareness of mental health phenomenon and how behavior works. One particular thing that's standing out is my undergraduate advisor actually, I took abnormal psychology, which is a whole issue of calling it that. But anyway, so the professor was, I think it was after class, someone ran in like from the class really, really late and was just like freaking out and really stressed that they were going to miss all this stuff and they were falling behind in the class. And he literally took her out there and just basically had a therapy session with her, like right then and there, and tried to talk her down. And so that was really pretty awesome to see. And that's been my experience in general with the faculty when I've been like, I'm not feeling good. Can I not come to class today? And they're like, that's fine. Especially with Zoom, obviously, I was able to just watch the recordings that way.
No, that's good to hear, and it's always interesting when teachers can be better therapists than therapists, or the fact that sometimes teachers have to be therapists because therapists aren't available. So my hat really goes off to all those people who have to fill in those shoes and do great work on it because it's not easy. They shouldn't have to do it, but yeah, sometimes teachers themselves can be some of the most helpful people when it comes to experiencing mental health crises. So I'm glad to hear you had that experience, Ryan. Okay, so let's get some more chat. I actually have to put on my glasses. Y'all in Twitch chat are like writing essays on there, so which I am I'm totally fine with because it's that kind of show. No pithiness here on SPSM chat, but I got to put on my glasses for these. So Laz the Laz. And feel free to interrupt me at any time, Anya or Ryan, if you have anything to add. Otherwise, I'll just read these off. Laz the Laz says, yes, I wanted to die in college a bunch, but I'd have to leave my room for that. Not leaving my room made me want to die. Not having that option to leave or die made things worse. It was fucking awesome. Throws confetti, but hopes no one thinks there's a sign I'm a messy person. Hides under a desk for a week. You've came to the right place, Laz. Lustar says inadequate disability and accessibility accommodations were what led me down. Most recently, I'm still partway through a Bachelor of Social Work. I've been on extended hiatus for a couple of years now, and a mental health peer work certification I put on hold last year. Well, hang in there, Lustar. Laz, there is just no consistency with accommodation, not even in the same school, department, or course sometimes. It's a complete mind fuck. And then Lustar says, depending on what degree you're doing, your mileage may definitely vary in terms of how understanding they're prepared to be. Absolutely. Humanities and social sciences are pretty good generally. The general and disability supports were less understanding, though. That sucks to hear. Laz says, it can also be really challenging because as a 20-year-old, even I had no idea what was appropriate for accommodation or what would or could be helpful. There just isn't always that life experience as a young person. True. And yes, because all people with bipolar disorder are the same. That is, yeah, if I'm bipolar, Anya is too. We are two completely different people. In a good way. You don't want to be like me, Anya. So I'm glad Lustar and Laz are talking to each other in the chat. Same thing with TJ Shizap says teachers need more credit. Yes, definitely. And more pay and tenure. So, and more support staff. Yes. And lastly, before we get back into our conversation, my partner was a similar lecturer in sports and exercise science biomechanics specifically until overwork caused him to start burning out and they fired him. He had a first year cohort of 40 plus students plus 2 PhD students to supervise. There weren't enough hours in the day. Okay, so let's talk about accommodations because this is something that I struggled with when I was in college. I mean, for me, I know that under the right circumstances and being set up for success, I could easily get a bachelor's and master's degree. But the way things work in college is that things can be very rigid, that you have to take certain courses, take certain types of tests. Like me, like honestly, like I could do verbal tests, like no problem. But when it comes to like having to write things out and having to be judged by a professor based on quality, rather than like, is this the actual right answer or not? Like I don't like having gray areas in tests. And like I've like when I was in the Army, I would take tests where you literally had to like use acetate paper and use a piece of string. This is for like for doing maps and stuff. We'd have to put a piece of string on a piece of acetate paper that measures like between like a base and like a vehicle or where the enemies are, and so on and so forth. So you can imagine that I was not being really set up for success in there, but it's not like in the Army where I could say like, oh, can I have an alternative assignment? But I'm a big fan of alternative assignments based on learning styles. And I know that there's some controversy within education about like, well, learning styles are like that's just making it easier for the person. Like if you really want a good student, they should be able to learn however we tell them to. Otherwise, they're going to end up soft and they're not going to get good careers and so on and so forth. So chat me up first, Anya. What kind of accommodations do you need or do you feel that need to be better implemented within colleges for people who are experiencing mental health crises?
So that's a tricky one because in my situation, it wasn't like something that I would need constantly because it literally was recurring episodes. And so sometimes I was completely fine and I was like a top student. And then other times I literally could not sleep. I couldn't concentrate. I was really, really struggling. And no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't do well. And so it kind of depends. So I think that in certain cases, exam extensions or assignment extensions might be necessary. In more extreme cases like hospitalizations, maybe a withdrawal or leave of absence if needed. Sometimes you have to put your mental health first, and I know that isn't something that people like to hear because sometimes they think that they just need to push through, but it's not a weakness to put your mental health first. So like that was something I had to remind myself. But I think there are just it depends on the person, like how their mental health impacts them and the severity and how frequently it impacts them.
Yes. How about you, Ryan?
I think, yeah, that's definitely a really difficult question. Nothing for me personally, since very, very fortunate again to kind of test well the way that college wanted me to in terms of the multiple choice essay exams, that papers, all that sort of stuff. But in general, I feel like if professors were just a human first and then thought about what to do rather than saying, well, here's the deadline. So being so strict and so rigid. And I have seen a lot more in pandemic times that there's been extensions. There's been a lot more of understanding. So I really hope that that's something that we carry in to when things start to go back into more in-person settings. And I want to be a professor personally, so that's something that I'm going to adopt. I'd rather be correct in giving an extension 80% of the time than be wrong that 20% and not give someone that actually needed it. So that's my philosophy on that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, like people get extensions at their jobs and careers all the time, and so it's like I don't feel like things like that. Like some teachers, like I had one teacher lecture us all like, "Y'all are too soft. Like you want this and that." Like when back in my day, like we didn't get any kind of accommodations, and I made it through. Well, good for you, professor. I respect that. Um, but I mean, some people like imagine like all the people we've left behind because we either didn't believe them or we thought they were being lazy. Like brilliant people. Like I'm not stupid, but like for the life of me, like I have no intention at all of going back to college unless like I could do like some kind of self-directed and like uber like focus like with someone that like I knew like can help guide me, which is a lot to ask. I know it's a very privileged thing, but otherwise, like if I just go to a college, like even like using the services of the disability office, oftentimes like these disability offices, people like will come to them and like that's like. And I guess that gives the impression that like, oh, like all these people who are at a disability office, they can't all be telling the truth. And it's like people like are struggling in college. Like college is a hard time, and it's no one really like bats an eye. Like if someone comes into a disability office in a wheelchair or that has like a service dog, but when someone comes in saying that like I'm very depressed, like I'm having a hard time, like a lot of times faculty and staff they will not always take that person for their word. Um, And it's interesting because the pandemic has had such a huge mental toll on everyone. Like everyone has struggled in some way. Otherwise, like you're not human. So like more and more people are more open to the idea of people getting accommodations, like even people who don't have disability, just because it's just so hard to deal with it all. But imagine how it was like for people like Anya and me, who already had these like crippling depression, anxiety, and all the other things that go along with bipolar and just being a human being. Like it can, it sucks. And like if we can just get some kind of accommodations, whether it be an extension, whether it be like being able to take a test in a separate room, or being able to take a test verbally rather than written, so on and so forth. Like to me, like that's not cheating. That's not like an easy way out, because in the end, can you demonstrate, do you know the information or not? Like, were you able to compute the information that was being taught to you by the instructor? If so, pass. If not, then we need to do some more work. Thoughts?
I think like people don't realize that like we're in a disadvantage. So it's not like we're getting special treatment in order to get like unfair advantage compared to everyone else. It's like just to even out the playing field, just to like get to the level where everyone else kind of is. So that's the way I see it.
Yeah, I also think that if college wasn't so grade centric, and if we weren't so grade centric in general, if we just focused more on how do we give that specific person the feedback that will make them better at that particular moment, we would create a caliber of students that, I mean, we couldn't even fathom it if it started it at preschool and then throughout, instead of being like, here's your check or check minus in elementary school, and then it turns to A's and B's and C's in high school and college. So if obviously accommodations would still be necessary even in that regard, but if it was a shift, everyone wouldn't be like, I need these extra 2 hours just to be on a level playing field. If it was just, I'm trying to give you feedback and make you a better person.
Yeah, I mean, a good college instructor or any kind of educator, they should be in the business of wanting all of their students to succeed, to pass. Like I've had some professors, they pride themselves on how many students fail their classes, or like how hard their finals are and all this stuff. And a good educator should be someone who wants all of their students to succeed. Yes, there can be underlying circumstances, outlying factors that can contribute to someone, including that person just not wanting to succeed or not being prepared, not like in the right mindset. But like, for the most part, like an educator should do all they can to make sure that people are getting the information. Again, that's what it should be about. You're in college to learn. Did you learn what the instructor was trying to teach you? If so, good. You deserve to move on to go on to bigger and better things. Otherwise, there needs to be more work. And the instructor, and I know that's easier said than done, I'm just some guy, but should work with students, especially if someone is like noticeably struggling and like trying to find some way out, trying to find some help. So, but that's just me spitballing there. Let's get to some more comments. And I did notice that on Twitter, the stream is it updated itself, so that'll be fun to see how it figured that self out. I know it's like it Twitter is fun and the world is fun and everyone is awesome. So let's go to I won't have time to read all of these, but I appreciate the lovely comments going back and forth between Laz and Lustar. Laz says, right, having certain accommodations or not could mean I could succeed in an advanced degree or just end up feeling like I am nothing and can do nothing and just fail at existence because executive functioning is not always running at level 10 for me, or because certain things are happening because of OCD. Just arg. I think TJ Shazap seconds that. And Lustar says the world in general is shit. I could probably just end it at that, but let's continue reading. At accommodations and accessibility, the pandemic's proven they're capable of so much more than they thought, though. And so many people hit college and realized they're neurodiverse. Apparently, they had managed up until that point due to supportive parents, schools, etc. Jess from How to ADHD on YouTube discussed it in a video not long ago. She did. She didn't get diagnosed in college when she had a breakdown soon after starting. Okay, let's see if anything else. Oh, yes. And great comment again. And these are all great comments. So I apologize if I'm not going to be able to read all of them, but so much great things. Invisible disabilities are so under-acknowledged. I honestly think the competitiveness of society is responsible for the jealous way in which people act towards people who need accommodations. I agree. And I'll get to more of these like before we wrap up, but I want to make sure that we can get into final thoughts and all that stuff. But so one of the other questions that I asked in the very beginning when we had our countdown and that I threw out to the Twitter chat as well is it healthy for college students to experience suicidal intensity from time to time? I think it's healthy. And I don't like that word healthy, but I was strapped for time, so I just use that, and the quotation marks are my out. So I think it's okay for anyone to experience suicidal ideation, intensity, whatever word you want to use, from time to time, because just the way the world is set up, especially for marginalized folk, it can be a very awful time for people. And I think even if you're having a good time, it's not weird or bad or unhealthy to think about suicide. Like that's just a function of human. Like people just think about suicide so often than people are willing to admit. And one of the things I want to make clear on this show, like just the meta theme of SPSM Chat, as long as I'm hosting, is that people think about suicide, and it's not a weird thing. It's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean that you're going to go out and actually act upon those thoughts. It's just a thing that happens. So let me ask you, Anja, when you were in college, did you think about suicide regularly at all? Like ever? Am I completely off base?
So I think I said earlier, I did first during my first depressive episode, and then I did periodically during like mania or mixed episodes, or again during depressive episodes. But I was struggling to get the right diagnosis and get the right treatment, the right medication. So my stability was all over the place, and I think that played a major part. So I'm not saying that suicidality is always linked with mental illness, but in my case, my bipolar disorder was a big part of the reason why I had suicidal ideation. And so, I mean, I don't want to say that it's like healthy, but it's not like abnormal. And I think that a lot of people like tend to really freak out about the fact that they have suicidal ideation because they think that like no one else experiences it because it's not really talked about, it's taboo. But I think it's pretty normal, so we need to talk about it more.
Yeah, and something that is unfortunately still a thing that happens way too often is that someone will come out about suicidal thoughts, or even just like just happens to bring up the topic of suicide with either a classmate or a dorm mate or an instructor or a therapist, and all of a sudden they're in the psych ward and they're being put on hold. They can't go back to college. They're being sent back home. All these awful things that like I still read about from time to time that is still happening in our college system. So still a lot of work to be done there. Ryan, you're the next generation. Don't be like those bad people that are unempathetic, that like hear the word suicide and freak out and think that just because someone brings up the topic of suicide that's like a reason to like lock that person up or to take away their rights. So Ryan, what do you think about like college students? Like, do you think that's again, I hate that word healthy or okay or wrong, bad, whatever, to think about suicide from time to time? Like, even if you're not actively going to a crisis, is that, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that's completely fine. Whenever someone says that they had a thought of suicide, I'm like, that's just a thought. We have thousands of thoughts a day. If you had one thought of suicide in the course of 365 days in the year, I'd say that's probably on par with probably the rest of the world, even though we don't want to admit it. So I feel like if there was just more normalization that it is a thought, and that it can be a passing thought, and that we can't even predict 5 minutes from now, let alone a year from now. So we don't know when someone's going to have those thoughts and when they're not going to have them. So just understanding the complexity of that.
Yes, definitely. Before we get into final thoughts, I just wanted to highlight any more chats. And while I'm reading these tweets, feel free to think of anything else that you want to bring up before we start bringing it home. So, Lust Star, again, I appreciate you. That's actually gonna be kind of sad when we had you on, because that's like our Twitch chat is kind of like gonna be a little bit more barren. But I was doing a social work degree too. We were told to be forthcoming with our own disadvantages in class to help normalize the kind of stuff we'd encounter in the field. Laz says, I mean, ableism exists in disability services, supports, and in the community itself, which sucks, but it is a thing. Yes. Lust Star says the physical disability movement is still exclusionary to psychosocial and intellectual disabilities, and neurodiversity sometimes disappointingly, sadly true. Lust Star also says, I'd love to see more approaches like alternatives to suicide offered in settings like colleges and universities. Yes, helping people to understand what their suicidal thoughts are trying to communicate to them could benefit people. Yes, and I like to tell people that, like, I was president of my Active Minds chapter, but we were kind of rogue, and like I know there's a lot of problematic things about Active Minds as well, and so like we were not as bad as some other Active Minds chapters who just basically just teach how to like report other students and classmates to mental health services and like or even call 911 on them and awful things. So. Okay, so yes, rogue active mind sounds cool. Yeah, I know. I had a great therapist. I missed her, talking to her when I was in college. That was very helpful, and unfortunately she left, and it's things weren't good so much after that. Let me see if I'm missing other Laz says some places it's this tiny little dark hole, and some schools it's nice and welcoming, and they actively point it out. Okay. Oh, TJ Shazap has a question. Let's try to tackle this one. I have a question. Even if an educational facility, high school / college has a disability office, are students comfortable going? Is there a fear to talk about or accept depression among young students that prevents them from going / seeking help, or is it an educational system issue? Just trying to understand. Do either or both of you want to tackle that?
I'll just, I guess, quickly say that I think there's like self-stigma. So people aren't really like likely to get help sometimes, or they think that they're not worthy of help, or they don't know whether they qualify as having disability. And so I think people who may benefit from accommodations may not even think that like that is an option for them.
Just to piggyback off of that, I think thinking about the actual consequences of the potential consequences of going and seeking help for when a student has depression, they may think that faculty will suddenly start walking around, feel like they have to tiptoe around them. It's like, oh, that student has depression. We don't want to like say a certain thing to them and cause them to be suicidal, since everyone links those two as the same thing a lot of the time, especially in middle school. So I think that's part of it as well.
All right. So before we get into final thoughts real quick, I just want to give a shout out to Henry on Twitter, who says that I'm grateful. And this is kind of like self-aggrandizement, but I'm grateful to Rudy for SPSM Chat and his work in normalizing discussing suicide. Feeling like you want to die isn't taboo. Yes, very true. And also goes on to say that's I think suicidal ideation is something that can be the straw that breaks the camel's back and the impetus for someone to seek treatment. So healthy in that way. Yes, Awesome. I appreciate all your comments, Henry. Thank you. Keep the conversation going on Twitter by using that hashtag SPSM. Even after the live stream, feel free to keep the conversation going throughout the week. I love checking the SPSM chat account from time to time just to see what people are doing with the hashtag. Thank you. Let's go. And final, I love that. I love that GIF. Let's play that, and that'll take us to final thoughts. So before we get the heck out of here, let's go on to final thoughts, and let's go on to Anja. Final thoughts.
Sure. So I remember a couple of years ago, there was a UNC TED Talk with Dr. Hogan, and he's a professor, and he was talking about his own suicidal ideation. And that was really groundbreaking to me, because that wasn't something I had heard someone in his position say before. So I feel like people opening the dialogue like that will let college students also be more likely to openly discuss it and seek treatment.
Yes, and you are at Calculating Mind on Twitter and Instagram.
Yes, on Instagram, it's the _calculating_mind. And on Twitter, it's at Calculating Mind.
Awesome.
And also my blog is thecalculatingmind.com.
Oh, you beat me to it. And you do guest blogs for other websites as well. Any highlights recently that you want to share?
My older ones on the Mighty, I think, are actually kind of relevant to this, because I talked about my experience with anxiety as a college student. So I think that might be something that these viewers are interested in.
Awesome. Thank you, Anja. This is far from the last time that you're going to be on. I'm excited to bring you on multiple times in the weeks to come, because you are an endless font of information or fount, whatever. So I'm glad that you're on this week, and I look forward to you sharing lots of additional knowledge in the weeks to come. So I'm glad we're able to make this work. So see you again soon, Anja.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Final thoughts, Ryan Robertson.
I'd say not only do we need to normalize the expression of suicidal thoughts, but also normalize how we should respond to them. So understanding that if your friend tells you that they're having thoughts, not to say, okay, let me call 911, let me tell your parent, let me tell your guardian, and breaking that confidentiality that they just gave to you. I think that's something that is all too common, even among the therapeutic world, and that's a big portion of things that need to change.
Yes, and you are at Ryan Zori on Twitter, 2 A's.
Ryan Zoria, yeah.
Is there a story behind that name?
So yeah, the reason that on Twitter I'm Rizoria then my name is a lot of my online friends are actually following me as well, and I'm a big Twitch user, so my name is Rizoria on that. So that's why when I made the account, I just continued to use both.
Oh, I didn't even know you were on Twitch. I should have used your Twitch name. Actually, I think I did. Whatever. But let's.
That's fine.
Okay, so that is going to do it for this week. Thank you so much, especially Ryan, who we had never talked at all before. And like a couple of days ago, I just randomly reached out to you on Twitter. I was looking for people who were in college and talking about suicide and doing work in suicide. And you probably had like no clue who I was. So I'm glad that you took a risk. And hopefully we didn't scare you away. Hopefully we can have you on again, because it sounds like you're only going up, up, up from here. So even when you're a big time college professor and Twitch star, I guess, then have you on again soon.
Yeah, I screenshotted your message to me and sent it to like 5 different people. I was like, should I do it? Question mark.
Really?
Yeah, it was really funny, but I'm
and
really
I told him no. Just kidding.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you were on here as well, Anja. I even got your what is the symbol for the C that on your name?
I'm blanking right now, but I appreciate it.
Yes, that is not easy to like have to like put in like each time I like use your name, but I'm like butchered your name royally the first time you were on. I called you like Burkhawk, and so never again. I'm going to make every effort to get it right. So like even the spelling. So again, thank you both. Thank you to everyone who joined us on across all of our multiple platforms, especially on Twitch. I appreciate the Twitch following. Keep showing your support. Twitch.tv/SPSM Chat. We stream every Sunday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Central Time. We are also on Facebook, facebook.com/SPSM Chat. Keep on liking that page. Twitter.com/SPSM Chat. We are, of course, at SPSM Chat. I'm at Rudy Caseres on Twitter. What am I forgetting? YouTube.com/SPSM Chat, and go to SPSMchat.com to watch all past episodes. That is going to do it for this week. We'll be back next Sunday, of course, and every Sunday after that as well. Thank you all. I'm just going to do the sign off this week, so I'm not going to take any more risks. But again, thank you all. I appreciate all of you. I love that the comments are still rolling in the Twitch chat. Thank you to the people who participated in the Twitter chat as well. And if you're watching later on the week, later on the month, that's totally cool. Hello, how are you doing? Until next time. I have to get my get into the right frame of mind. Into next time. Hold your pickies close.